Good Friday morning, and welcome to this week's episode of Finding God in the Dark, the podcast. My name is Don Stevens, serving Asbury UMC in Woodstown, New Jersey, and St. John's UMC in Harrisonville, New Jersey.
And I'm Jonathan Campbell. I'm the pastor of Lacey United Methodist Church.
This week, Jonathan and I are talking about the 2017. Do we call this a horror movie?
It's,
Horror,
I would say horror adjacent. Yeah.
yeah, something like that. 47 meters down. Again, came out in 2017, rated PG-13. Stars Mandy Moore, Claire Holt, Matthew Modine,
Yeah.
directed by Johannes Roberts.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I ever heard. Well, hey, he does have another film to his credit,
What's that?
the sequel to this one,
Nicholas.
which is worse actually. This one is just bad.
Yeah.
Let's be right at the top. This is
Yeah.
not a good film. We
Bad
do
enough.
not recommend it on its merits.
No. Yeah. I mean, a lot of the themes it tries to connect with, you get a better movie in Jaws just to watch Jaws again.
Yeah. And I think I said last week that I thought I may have seen parts of it. And then I realized that it was another film that came out around the same time within a year of this one, that's so much better that I had seen The Shallows.
Yes, the one with
Which,
Blake Lively, right?
yes,
Yes,
that's a good that's a
that
good
is a
movie.
better movie. That is a better movie. Yes.
This one, we talked a little last week about suspend your disbelief. Sometimes you got to suspend your disbelief. You've got to
Yeah.
murder your disbelief, I think,
Yes.
in order to go with this film. It's just not,
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
good. The acting's bad, the writing's bad, the whole premise is terrible. I read one thing, when they on IMDb, sometimes they talk about goofs in movies,
Yeah.
and they said at that depth, at 47 meters, their air would have lasted about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and they make it last an hour, and then they get new tanks.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
they easily drop the tanks right to them. It's like, yeah. Currents and yeah. Okay, whatever. Yeah,
Yeah.
my middle child scuba dives. He's actually a certified scuba diver, and
Okay.
I didn't ask him to comment on this movie, but just listening to all the stuff he has to go through to just go down 50 feet, and I'm just like, yeah, this would be they'd be dead.
It's not a good film. And there's a sequel. There's a sequel called 47 Meters Down Uncaged,
We're gonna do
which
that
means
next week.
no, oh God, no. Absolutely not.
Uh,
That one, okay, this one is bad enough in that there are so many scenes where these girls who are not professional divers or anything somehow avoid being bitten by the sharks
yes,
that are terrorizing them.
yes, yeah,
That was so bad and so unbelievable that, and in order to make that believable in the sequel, they make the shark blind.
oh my gosh.
It's in underground,
Hmm.
an underground cave, and so the shark is blind.
Yeah, interesting. Okay.
Okay, I've set up the second one for you.
You actually watched the second one. I'm impressed.
I've seen it.
Oh my God. Slow news day or
It's I don't remember what the I don't have an excuse necessarily,
oh
but it was not a good film.
yeah.
Uh,
So if you have to watch a shark movie, do Jaws. If you can't do Jaws, do Shallows and skip this one.
yeah, Jaws is great. And here's
Yeah.
one of the problems, and we'll get a little into this, some of the theology stuff, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
One of the problems with any film like this, and in a lot of these shark movies, they make the sharks
Yeah.
out to be these
Yeah.
menacing bad guys,
Yeah.
and we don't look. Sharks are just animals.
Yeah.
Are they deadly? Absolutely. So are tigers and bears and lots of other animals that we keep in zoos and that some people for some crazy reason keep as pets.
Yes.
But they're not. You said this right before we started taping, so I want to let you say it because
Yeah.
it
I
was
mean, it's
thought.
I think actually this is actually one of the theological things I wanted to talk about is that we anthropomorphize nature and we oftentimes infuse animals with evil, and animals aren't evil. They have very baseline motives that we share with them. They basically want to reproduce. They want to protect their territory. They want to feed, and they want to protect their young. That we share that with them. And so we have these movies oftentimes you'll see it especially in in the sequels of movies like this. Like you'll get like if you watch and I wouldn't suggest it, but if you watch Jaws 3 and Jaws 4 ever, like the shark keeps going after the family, like it will like travel to
The
different
same
locations.
family, yeah.
Yeah, will travel to different locations. Animals don't work like that. Like
Like,
yes, will a shark bite you? Yes. You
yes.
know why a shark bites you? Because it's hungry. We've oftentimes overfished the population of the food it eats, and it's looking for food. And literally, when it tastes you, it literally will usually release you because my understanding is sharks think we taste like crap. So, like, you know, so a shark
I
would
mean,
not.
I've seen it said that, a lot of times surfers will be attacked by a shark because they think it's a sea turtle. It has the
Yes,
profile of a sea turtle,
yes. I mean,
you know?
basically, the flopping of people, especially like on rafts or on um, like surfboards, appears to be like a wounded sea lion, which is something that they do love to eat, and they do
Right.
kind of hunt.
Right.
And but the reality is like a shark isn't gonna circle a human being over and over again and continue to attack it. It's just not gonna do that. Like it's not gonna chase you
Or
down. You know,
or hunt you down the coast,
yes,
like he's trying to make you an offer you can't
yes,
refuse, you know?
yes.
It's like,
Yeah, like I believe in the fourth Jaws movie, the family goes from the island of Nantucket to Jamaica, and the shark
and the shark
follows
shows.
them. It's just like, what? No, no, a shark isn't gonna do that.
No.
And I guess what worries me about, and this is you find this in a lot of movies and entertainment, is we demonize nature in a way that is not at all fair to nature. And I think in the demonization, we are able to kind of push away how we treat it. So it doesn't matter if animals suffer. Who cares? That they're kind of out to get us anyway. And it's like, no, it's we're supposed to care for nature. That's the whole kind of idea of Genesis 1. We're called to be stewards and protectors of nature.
Right.
And so when we demonize nature and make it be like this evil force that we're fighting against, we're just usually justifying our own cruelty and our own mismanagement of natural resources.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're spot on there. And maybe, as we're talking about this, it kind of occurs to me that maybe some of that comes from um, the fairy tales we were told as kids, right? Where we anthropomorphized animals and we gave them human qualities, and so they became evil, and that sort of thing. Some of it comes from the fantasy literature that we read. If you read, and I love Tolkien, right? But if you read Tolkien, it's easy to say that there's parts of the world that are just everything in it is evil, you
Yeah.
know um,
Well, I mean,
so yeah.
you get this, and sometimes in the horrible ways we talk about like continents, like Africa, the dark continent. It was ways for Europeans to justify colonialization and the mismanagement and
Mm,
mistreatment of the entire continent. So we turned it dark, we turned it evil, we turned it sinister, and it's like, no, it doesn't work that way. But I mean, like even in this very bad movie, they start off by saying, isn't it illegal to chum the water? Yeah, it's illegal to chum the water. You know why? Because when you fill water with blood and dead animals, guess what? Animal that hunts other fish is going to come and swim in and get aggressive. And you know what happens if you throw yourself into the water? and around aggressive sharks that are looking for food, they might bite you.
And then they're evil because of it.
Yes, it's like so. Yeah, I mean, not that. Look, I if anyone gets hurt with a shark attack, I'm sure that would be horribly scary. I'm not
Sure.
saying you deserve it or anything like that,
No.
but you do have to recognize if you throw chum, if you throw dead animals and blood into the water around hungry animals, there's a possibility that they're going to be aggressive and bite you.
Yeah. This but we've taken that possibility another step,
Yeah.
at least in this film,
Yes.
in that they've gone beyond aggressive. Now they actually want to eat you
Yes. I mean, this
because
this is this is a movie where this premise is there are two women in a cage about 5 meters down. That water's chummed just around the boat. Mechanism fails, and they drop 47 meters, which is roughly 150 feet. So basically, the length of half a football field. And we're supposed to believe that the sharks swim down to try to kill them.
right.
And then and stay around for the whole hour looking for them. Like,
Yeah. Well, and not just that, but and look, folks, this is a 7-year-old movie. It's not a good movie. We don't recommend it. I'm going to say that right. We said that right at the top.
yeah,
I'll keep saying that. So I'm gonna spoil the ending for you.
yeah,
Okay. It does one of those things that I honestly despise in movies, and I saw it coming. At one point, they talk about be careful. We're sending down tanks for you because they were running out of air, and we're going to send you down some oxygen tanks, but be careful because you could get the bends and you'll hallucinate.
yeah,
And as soon as he said that, I said they're going to pull a switch up ending. They're
yeah,
going to pull an ending where they get rescued, and then surprise, they're still in the cage, just like The Descent does the same thing, right? There's any number of movies that you could name that pull that switch, bait and switch on you, right? And they did it. And so, okay, so now it's going to be a grim ending. Okay, she dies in the cage. No, she still gets rescued.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
they,
Well,
they,
it's again, it's and this is something that we probably on some level, I don't know if we need to talk about it now, but the desperate need for American movies to have a happy ending. You know, like a good example is, like we talked about this a little bit before we started. If you look at just the factors of this, those two young women died because you can't go down that far and have the the tank. If you're going to go down that far, the tank that's set up to go down that far is created differently and is filled differently so that the air lasts longer.
right.
The tanks they were using are for just shallow
For
dives,
shallow dives.
which means if they went down that far, their air would run out in about 15 minutes. So it wouldn't be
Right.
much of a movie and they'd be dead. And and so the facts are that they would probably overwhelmingly die. And yet we struggle with the idea of ever ending a movie sadly. Like
It's terrible when you see, or maybe you read or whatever, the original, and it is some kind of bleak ending. And the one that pops in my head, I know this is going to sound weird. The one that pops in my head is I saw a an off-Broadway production of Little Shop of Horrors.
okay.
Okay. Now, the the off-Broadway production ends with the giant plant taking over the world.
Mm,
The original movie that they made from it back in the, I don't know, the 50s or something, there's a very old version of it, ends with the plant taking over the world.
yeah,
When they remade it in the 90s, they changed the ending.
yeah,
And the new ending is not nearly as good. Okay, great. Seymour wins, but like the original ending better. you know? And
Yeah,
why we had to have it, and why did they change it? And I've read about that. Why did they change it? Well, the test audience didn't like,
yeah,
they wanted a happy ending.
yeah.
Okay,
I mean,
but the audience isn't always right.
yeah, and I think a lot of that is an interesting. It's just an interesting dynamic of our culture, and it really is American culture. Is this
Yeah.
kind of need for there to be a happy ending, there to be a bow wrapped around the story, and loose ends can't really exist. And it would just be interesting to kind of reflect on why we struggle so much with the complexity of life, the fact that stories don't always end the way we'd like them to. Like it's part of life.
I mean,
Um,
we have, but okay, we come at this from a Christian perspective, right? Don't we have
oh yeah,
the real happy ending, right?
yeah, and
We
that's
have the real redemption story.
yeah, and the idea is the resurrection is the always the ending, the happy ending after death. It's it's kind of the as one pastor puts it, the last thing isn't the worst thing, and that's beautiful, and I understand the power of it, and I believe in it, but at the same time, sometimes it's just like when we're dealing with pastoral care with people, you need them to be able to set in the sadness sometimes, and they need to kind of accept
Yeah.
that sadness. And the problem is, even though there is a happy ending out there, if you drag people to it, I think sometimes we don't recognize that process of really understanding the happy ending is to really deal with the sadness,
The,
you know.
well, okay, and you're touching on something that I've said before. Like we all love Easter, but you don't get Easter without Good
Yeah.
Friday.
Well, I mean, I don't know if we've talked about, I've talked about it with a lot of pastors, is over the last 40 years, fewer and fewer people go to Good Friday or Monday, Thursday services.
Yeah.
And so the vast majority of even active Christians, even Christians that actively go to church on a regular basis, they will come to Palm Sunday, which is usually a celebration, and then they'll come next Sunday to Easter, which is a celebration. But the power of those, especially Easter celebration, is centered in the pain of the week that followed, the week that preceded it. Like the power of Easter really is in facing Good Friday. And we have a tendency as Christians to run away from that, and we lose the power of the moment.
You don't in that situation, and I think in good redemption stories, you don't get the triumph without the tragedy.
Yeah.
You have, otherwise there's no stakes, right? There's no stakes in the story. Um,
So
and
yeah.
and
So
this film, there didn't feel like there were any stakes.
no.
Let's be honest.
So even though it was a bad movie, and there are many, many better movies we could talk about this, maybe having a discussion around theodicy would be worth having. Um, you know,
On this film, because we had to suffer through it.
yeah. Well, I mean, yes. I mean, you can argue they're stupid, and that's why they're in this situation. So that, but that question that a
I
lot of
mean, look,
people,
you
you
have to
know,
remember the whole point, the whole reason that the one sister got in the cage was
yeah,
because her her ex-boyfriend said he broke up with her because she was boring. So she wanted
yeah,
to do something exciting and take pictures
that's
of
true.
it to send to him. I mean,
Okay,
talk
so
about shallow.
yes, we'll keep the theodicy discussion. Fair enough. We'll keep the discussion to a better film. But
Sure, there's better films.
yes, oh yeah, there is. Um, okay, so the other thing I was thinking about is how we face death or how we deal with fear. I don't know if you want to talk about either one of those.
Let's talk about it. Yeah.
Which one would you like to start with?
I think I think they're kind of intertwined, aren't they?
Yeah.
But
Oh,
let's, I mean, the big one is death, right? How do we face death? How do we
yeah.
it's a great discussion because I've had this discussion any number of times with folks that particularly folks who are dealing with chronic diseases, maybe terminal illnesses, and that, we pray for healing, but healing isn't always what we want,
Well,
right?
healing, yeah, healing, we have a tendency, I mean, I won't get on my soapbox about disability stuff, but we have
So,
a tendency to see healing in what we would call the medical model, which is basically there's a problem with the person. How do we fix the problem with the person?
right.
But healing in Jesus's understanding and how the ancient Jewish healers did it was healing was actually about connecting someone that was disconnected from community, helping them get reconnected to the community, both helping the community welcome the person back, but also the person being connected back into the community. And so healing really is about this idea of helping someone find peace in whatever situation they're in. I mean, that's really what healing is about. Helping people find contentment and peace and kind of allow them to be their best self in whatever situation they're finding themselves in. And so, yeah, it's about, when we face death, it's about not necessarily running away from death, but using those moments to be the best person we can be in those moments.
There's
So I
there's a
don't,
sense of wholeness to it,
yeah,
right?
yeah, shalom, the Jewish idea of kind of being your best self on every layer of what it means to be human. Um, so I'm gonna go to a book now, but have you ever read Tuesdays with Maury?
Mm,
Okay.
can't say I have.
So basically, a setup was it was written by Mitch Albom, who was a sports, longtime sports writer for the Detroit Free Press. And he had a coach when he was, I think, in middle school or high school. And he finds out that coach is sick. And so he wants to spend time with him. And so he ends up being basically a respite person for his wife on Tuesdays. And so he spends time with Maury, and he writes a book about the lessons he learned from this man as he was dying. And one of the powerful pieces of it that I've never forgotten is Maury told him once, he goes, how basically goes, how do you do, like, this guy was dying of, it, believe Lou Gehrig's disease. He was slowly losing his physical body to move, to breathe. He was going to die of basically not being able to breathe, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
It's a very scary process in a lot of ways.
sure.
And he basically asked him, he goes, how can you deal with this and be so positive and upbeat and want to spend time with me, want to spend time with your family? Basically, he was asking, how did you not lose your mind and just be totally depressed? And Maury tells him, the first 15 minutes I wake up, I allow myself to feel however I feel, and kind of be in that moment however I am. And then I realized, though, I want to spend today loving people. I want to spend today building better relationships with my friends and my family. And so I basically say I'm going to spend the rest of the day trying to connect and build community with people. And that's what I do. So I allow myself 15 minutes to be sad, and then I go, okay, what am I going to do with the rest of this day, this blessing? And how am I going to be with people and love people and connect with people? I mean, that's always been a beautiful way for me. I hope that if I ever have to face something like that, I can live in that way where I go like, okay, I got this day. I don't know if I'll have tomorrow, but I have this day. How am I going to spend time with Don and to get to know him better and to get to connect with him better? How am I going to spend my day with my kids or with my friends or family? And how am I going to let them know that I love them and build deeper connections with them? I think those kind of things are how we're called to live a difficult time in our lives, is to, okay, it's okay to be sad, it's okay to be depressed, but you have this moment. How are you going to do something that helps you connect with other people and helps lift you up and other people up. And I really think that's kind of the resurrection idea of Christianity, right? Is maybe this moment I'm not going to survive, or maybe this moment I am going to die. But how can I bring this idea of new life into this situation? How can I bring the idea of resurrection into this dark moment?
This
Um,
sounds very much like an adage we've probably heard tossed around a lot. You know, that idea of live every day like it's your last,
yeah, yeah,
which at least this is a mature way of looking at it. Because the
yeah.
immature way of looking at it is, oh, if I'm going to live every day like it's my last, it's going to be really selfish. But,
Well,
but
as much as like let's look at this movie. If we would
yeah,
have to do a serious rewrite on it, right? There's no question. But
if we're going to stick with the premise, sure.
yeah, yeah. But to be fair, one of the places that could have been really, it would have been hard because of the situation, but kind of the moment, kind of some of the beautiful moments of this movie could have been this interaction between the sisters, kind of coming to terms with their relationship, coming to terms with the competition and distance they had, and kind of finding peace in that moment when they're facing death.
Yeah.
Um, that idea of as it's easy for us to talk about it, and so I don't want to dismiss this, but I thinking about the fact that okay, I may die down here, and I may never get up to back onto land again. I may never, this may be my last hour or my last 30 minutes, but I want to make peace with my sister who's right here with me. I want to let her know I love her. Like, I don't know if they ever expressed to each other. I can't remember them expressing to each other that they loved each other, you know?
There was a little of it. It was more of the, I support you, you can do it, when,
Yeah.
going across the chasm to find the flashlight or going out to get the tanks or whatever.
But I mean, I hope to God, if I'm ever in something like that moment where I know may have 30 minutes to live, I hope if I have someone next to me who is a brother or a sister, I will turn to them at some point and say, I just want to let you know I love you. you know, you know, and I think I yeah, I think again, I'll go back to Stephen Covey, best known for the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He does this exercise where he says, imagine you're at your funeral and write down and then list everybody that's there, like list everybody in groups, like my wife, my kids, my brothers, my sisters, my parents, my friends, my colleagues, and then write down what you would like them to say when they stood up to speak about you. And then he talks about after you do that exercise, then plan the rest of your life based on the eulogy and what you'd want people to give. And that is a beautiful idea of, okay, what would you like your children to say about you? Okay, if you want them to say these things about you, how can you live your life so that they will say those things about you? I want my wife to say this at my funeral. Okay, how can you live your life so that your wife will say those things at your funeral? And I do think, you know, I'm blanking on his name, but another writer uses that same kind of thing. And he talks about don't live for your resume, live for your eulogy. And I do think that's a powerful way to live life and a powerful way to face and defeat the fear of death, I think, is if you're not living for your next job, you're not living for your next kudos at work, you're living for what people will say when your life's over, what impact you will make with everybody in your life. And I do think living for your eulogy is a better way to live than living for your resume.
That's good stuff. I'm not I don't think I've read either of those. So now you're gonna have to start giving me a reading list, John.
There you go.
We're gonna be out of here. So we're getting close to time, but we pretty much have this week's film picked out.
Yeah,
Let's finish up with 47 meters down.
yeah,
No.
yeah. If you want good shark or danger movies, which kind of give you really things to chew on and philosophical things to think about and theological things to think about, Jaws is much better.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you set on that scene where they talk about the Indianapolis sinking and and him facing death. That scene is much better at thinking about how to live your life
Yeah.
than this movie ever got.
Yeah. Well, and look, even if you're just into the whole menacing animal thing,
Yeah.
okay, I'll throw one out there worth watching just for the laughs. Cocaine Bear. Go watch
Yes.
that. You know,
Yes.
just for the laughs, okay?
Yeah,
That
I
one's
don't
worth
really want to
laughing at.
theologically reflect on it, but yeah.
Not a great movie either, but at least it's funny.
And even you're right. I can't believe I didn't think about it, but Shallows is a much better version of this movie.
Yeah, Shallows is decent. It's very decent. Um, but anyway, so 47 meters down, it's out there. If you're so inclined, it's on Tubi, whatever.
Yeah.
For this week coming up, we've pretty much already picked out the film because we're going to watch a film that's coming out in theaters this week called Conclave. What do you know about this one, Jonathan, beforehand? I think I've seen like one preview for it.
I
So
know it's got an amazing cast,
mhm.
and I know that it's about the death of a pope and then the process that the Catholic Church cardinals go in to pick the next pope, which is called a conclave.
Mhm.
And the process was codified, I believe, in the 8th century. So, or no, maybe actually less, probably like the 12th century. And they've been doing it pretty much the same way since the 12th or 13th century. And so there's a lot of ancient processes they have to go through, which can seem very foreign, and I'm sure will be very foreign to us. I know there's a surprise ending. I'm not going to give that away. Um, I know that some Catholic, especially very conservative Catholic people, have been pushing back against this. So that's kind of interesting to kind of explore. But I thought for us and our podcast, the fact that we're pastors, we're in the religious world, we're trying to think about things theologically, and think about movies theologically, I thought it would be really interesting to do a movie about religious people going through a process. So,
Let's be honest, there's probably a lot of politics involved in it as well, and
yes,
that is your baby. So,
it is.
which is a little bit on that, but not a whole lot.
Yeah.
So, but that's cool. That's fine.
Well,
So
it'll
the
it'll
film
be it'll be inner church politics, so it won't.
interchurch politics.
It's not going to
And
go. It's not like they're going to talk about Donald Trump in this movie. It's not.
no. Let's call it political
Yeah.
action,
Yes. Yeah.
not governmental politics,
Yeah.
church
Yeah.
politics.
Church politics,
Um,
which is can be just as nasty, unfortunately.
yes, well, we know that firsthand.
Yes.
We do know that firsthand. So we'll be watching Conclave this week. For those who are going to watch next week, we we won't spoil that one for you.
Yeah.
I won't spoil new films for you. You know,
We,
we'll
we,
see it.
we
We'll talk around the ending.
we'll
You know,
make sure we do a spoiler-free review. Yeah.
Absolutely. We'll do a spoiler free pod on that next week. So if you're so inclined and you're following along and you want to go see that this week, that's what we'll be talking about next week. It opens, we're filming on Wednesday. It opens tomorrow night.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
you, and then we'll talk about it next week. Until then, friends, keep on finding God in the dark. We will see you all very soon.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for watching the Finding God in the Dark podcast. If you're enjoying these discussions, please consider hitting the like button down below or subscribing to follow along. We put out weekly episodes on Friday mornings, and we are so glad that you're finding this discussion of theology and film entertaining enough to follow along with us. Take care and God bless, friends.